who, by the way, is a proven Mossad agent, and in the early 40s got arms from Czechoslovakia through to Israel, and also later nuclear equipment, who also took a dive off a boat after his empire, media empire fell. Barney Bonato, before him, supposedly committed suicide after being made effectively a billionaire in then money. Who knows how and why, what happened with that money or check, and how much of it made it to his heirs. I don't know, because he was not highly educated, although he knew he was onto a good thing. And that was the securement of all South Africans' precious metals. These guys absolutely apply the golden rule. He who controls the gold makes the rules. You've also got to think that crypto is the big fake out to get us into something that's high, fast, and furious, and even more volatile than silver on steroids, to stop us getting precious metals. So if you're a crypto fan, you're not going to like this message. Some of you will react emotionally. I'm just saying, bear it in mind. Be a believer in nothing. You know not the fullness of the game that they play. Trade it. Make money on it. Do not have all your eggs solely in the one basket. You should have precious metals holdings, gold, silver. You should potentially acquire cheap mining shares if you want. This is not a financial advice. This is an opinion. In my opinion, for me, you should look into mining, marginal mines, silver, gold, etc. If you play the entire silver game, let me just read to you something that happened to Liberty Money and eGold and how it was phrased. Remember, we've just had Trump mention Bitcoin for the first time. We've had BitMEX pulled now. They probably had info for a long time and been collecting it. Remember, spy agencies do a lot of things. They spy and watch for a long, long time, and they collect and they collect and they collect and they collect. And they keep ammo, and then when it's time and there's a concerted effort, a whole bunch of lightning strikes at once within short succession of each other. So you've got these guys that have made their charge on BitMEX, which is by far the biggest volume. Remember, it's a derived market. It's not a typical exchange. But if you want to trade volume, that's where everyone is going. There will be others like it. There are already others like it, but it's the biggest for now. Government convergence on BTC and cryptos is an indirect way to shut decentralized dollar down. Yeah. On this point, decentralized dollar, sidebar. Bitfinex was the first to do tether and has been in government sites ever since. Maybe they are illegit. Maybe Brock Pierce is crooked, or Roto-Ruto's guy Bixware is right about it. Maybe he isn't. Who knows? I can't cast. I've not done it, researched it to the same level. But I can tell you what they wouldn't have liked is that there was a dollar equivalent token. The minute you do that, you are on collision course with the control structure. So Bitfinex gets a hack. Who are the biggest hackers in the world? Ask yourself this question. Who are the biggest hackers in the world? Dark state and intelligence agencies for me. Anyway, so Bitfinex provoked the ire by being the tether for all cryptos. Now you've had, through Goldman Sachs and many others, they've said if we can't take them out, we've got to offer alternatives. We'll squeeze them out and kill tether. But now it'll be our version of dollar in decentralized environment, supposedly decentralized. We'll come back to that as well. They'll do, if needed, they'll do 51% attacks. For comparison, read into the histories of eGold and Liberty Dollar. Both created as private digital currencies. This is how the control structure and its state acts towards it. I want to read something from the conviction that was found. On March 18th, 2011, von Nothaus was convicted of making, possessing, and selling his own coins. Remember, these were backed. eGold was backed, 100% backed. After a jury in Statesville, North Carolina, deliberated for less than 2 hours, this didn't take much time. There's not much to think about here. The jury found him guilty of one count under 18 USC, one count of laws, boring shit, and one count of conspiracy. You create your own money, and you are now The people that say conspiracies don't exist are putting a guy that created free money away from government down as a conspirator. You can't make this thing up. The real conspirers are putting someone seeking liberty down as a conspirator while saying conspiracy theories means you're a nut. Think about that a little loop there for a second. He faces up to 15 years in prison, 250,000, 7 million of minted coins and precious metals to the government, weighing 16,000 pounds. They took all his gold, Western District of North Carolina. Here's the key line I want you to hear. Ann M. Tompkins. This is the legal state prosecutor figure for the Western District of Northern Carolina. Described the Liberty Dollar, quote, a unique form of domestic terrorism. Creating your own money that is legitimately backed, that others can use as private money that they can use, that has gold backed behind it, there was no fraud involved or ever, is domestic terrorism. If you threaten their unbacked, highly proliferated, highly Ponzi scheme, you, for offering real money that is better than theirs, truer than theirs, non-fraudulent, are a terrorist. Hear me now, so saith the bitch with the legal prosecuting cape. To undermine, she goes on, that is trying to undermine the legitimate currency of this country. So let's hear that quote again. A unique form of domestic terrorism that is trying to undermine. No, it's not undermining. It was very, very small and it was just a rival. So just competing means you're undermining. The legitimate, no, it's totally illegitimate and is controlled by the Fed cartel. We know all about them. Go see my YouTubes on the creature from Jekyll Island, outside, standing in Jekyll Island. I went there to undermine the legitimate currency of this country. As if there can only be one. Someone decided there can only be one legitimate currency. It can be controlled by bankers that they have allowed to take hold of your state. And offering an alternative makes you a terrorist, even if it is better, more legitimate, and non-fraudulent, and doesn't rely on a debt Ponzi scheme. That is your state of freedom. That is where you should be a revolutionary. That is Ron Paul, a conservative with the one soul aspect of his revolutionary transformatory, which is supposedly the leftist characters. The one place he is an activist against ending this perversion of your financial system. The press release also quotes her saying, so if you dined out on that quote, you're going to love this one. While these forms of anti-government activities, she means anti-fraudulent behavior by your government activities, do not involve violence, they are every bit as insidious and represent a clear and present danger to the economic stability of this country. In other words, you may not. You are a terrorist designed to undermine the economic stability of the country for exposing the Ponzi scheme and fraudulent nature of that country's dominant currency. So this is why Bitfinex, that comes with Tether, a decentralized version of the dollar, has not got hacked, in my opinion, right up, and has had bad PR since day one. The control structure. You don't have to have been a bent operator. You may well be a bent operator as well. I have no personal comment on the people involved. Others may be right, but you don't have to be to have that degree of attention from the state against your company. So this is the understanding of the preeminence of gold, the degree to which people will go about to control gold and silver, where Libra will take you towards an IRS-based solution. Think Coinbase as your gateway. Calibra will actually be the gateway point where they do that, the wallet on-ramp into Libra, whilst getting their freedom from the domination of America, which is a sign that the dollar will fail and they wish to continue to develop as a global national alternative currency, and they will get the blessing in the end. Initially, they're talking it down because Libra's existence boosted Bitcoin. Because the perception is Libra comes, we'll see even more people in Bitcoin initially. They need to keep Libra down, so lots of questions to ask. It may not happen, da-da-da-da-da-da. It kills Bitcoin for a while. Why? Because we've been in a disorderly ascent. So's gold and silver recently, although on a much smaller percentage scale. However, when the music stops, guys, if you ask me, where do you want the bias of your wealth to be sitting in? Do you want it to be in crypto or in precious metals? I would rather have 51% and even 100 to up to 100%, knowing the date the music stops, in precious metals and precious metal miners, even though there could be a risk government could try seize mines at some point, then 100% or 51% in cryptos. That doesn't mean cryptos won't play a role. They won't go up faster. They won't look to attempt to control the cent of Bitcoin every now and then when it does too much too soon, etc. Could it have a sell-off with all of this talk down from the Trump and all of them? Let me tell you, Trump is controlled. There will be no batches of bad news. Or news management are designed to create natural selling tendencies and something that they don't want to have get out of control in a disorderly way. And you can go disorderly down and you can go disorderly up. Until they give up final control and they let the old system collapse, and the likes of all the Swiss-based stable coins and everything as a now. And their goal is to denationalize currency. There's no reason for so many countries of the world to each have their own individual currency in their mind. And in some senses, they're right. Small little countries, it takes too many resources and all. The problem is that they want to control it. I don't in principle have a problem with the notion that maybe we should have 15 world currencies as an example and countries opt in. The problem is you have to be tied, and you can't have fiscal union without monetary union, hence why the EU will fail, etc., etc. So, I mean, it doesn't help Congo tying to the Japanese yen. There's nothing in common in the cultures and the approach to spending and saving, etc. So, so while I wouldn't have a problem with less currencies, it's a much bigger thing to pull off. And you have to find very careful currencies to tie to. And I don't like the idea of centralization of power that would bring, and the people that are behind it. So while we have a dominant dark state operation that is taking you to a global communistic Bolshevik corporatocracy-based control, I can't buy anything without only getting Amazon. Everything I buy, I only get Amazon options. I want to support other retailers. First 10 will be Amazon. The corporatocracy is getting you, just like Rockefeller did. He paid them pitocins, his oil mining workers. He put them in compounds and got all the money. He paid them back by making them buy in his store, in his shop. He controlled and owned people, lived in a bubble in his world where they lived and worked an entire toilage. And anything he gave them, he took back and some, while indebting them and making them earn elsewhere and turning them into his slaves. And you are in a larger technocratic version of this corporatocracy machine, and it is the sole place where you should be an activist. But it's the hardest place, it's the most dangerous place. And you will be called an anti-Semite, you will be called an undermining government, as this vile woman said. You will be called a subversive. You will be called many, many things. You'll be called you'll also, by resisting, let's talk about this go home thing of Trump. He's meant to be an antagonist. He's meant to have 50% of the party go, yeah, of the country go, fuck yeah, if you don't like it, go. And he's meant to have the other guys, I'm repulsed by your vile attitude to immigration and our cultures. So these are the social managers that try to dictate how you should think and how you should say, versus the cells. If someone has a bad cell in their body, an individual microcosm bad cell, the best thing is you terminate that cell and you remove it before it becomes a tumor, which then requires surgery. In an environment where everyone is contributing and should be self-improving, if you're perpetually complaining, perpetually biased, perpetually angry, perpetually irritated, call it an infected cell. Call it a inflammation. You either heal up and find your peace and contribute and work on yourself and get yourself clean and be more accepting of where you are, or in some people's point, go and live with the other infected cells where you feel is more common. Associate according to your culture. So in that instance, I understand the notion of, listen, everyone makes choices. If you don't like your current situation and you're so convinced that this is so evil that you're going to non-stop harass, bug, create, vibe, go and be where there are other people who think like you, or go back to the environment you were in before if this is so bad. The activist is a champagne socialist in many instances. He recognizes he's already positioned in the best place for where he wants to be, and then he is an agitator. So in the same way Trump is supposedly he's a proxy pseudo-conservative, he's not legitimate, is an agitator, is agitating. The left that wants to go straight to social change without looking and developing himself, and many of these people that are the biggest orchestrators of social change have horrific histories. They've committed fraud. So the whole Bolshevik movement, I mean, I broadcast from Tbilisi. Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky were all involved in bank robbery. They were robbers. They were robber barons. He hung around Stalin with a guy who actually not only murdered someone but ate their hearts, who was utterly savage, a killer. And he eventually had that killer killed himself once he was in supreme power, as he did Trotsky, Stalin. But these revolutionaries are often the most toxic at the individual levels. They don't want to look at changing themselves and growing within. They want to change the society to match them. And that then leads to a highly toxic society with total power. What they want is total power, and that's the Bolshevism solution. So how do you position? You position in precious metals, you trade cryptos, and you maybe consider having some of your portfolio while recognizing it could be zeroized. The new tech could come, new coin could come, in the same way the first search engine wasn't the final search engine. I don't think tokens, I think there's too many tokens, and I don't think tokens is the technology. Anyone can release a token. Something anyone could do. I could go launch HVF token and just trade HVFs with it, and it grows in value according to this, and people could follow it. It would have a bigger justification than half the tokens out there in the 3,000 odd. It's the tech that it runs on, it's the infrastructure. Let's be clear, if people no longer mine, the whole raison d'etre for Bitcoin can no longer occur. So it's got a foundation, and the foundation isn't the token. It's the blockchain, it's the fintech, and at the moment it's attacked for the amount of power it uses, although we've got tons of power and energy. I've done lots of clips on energy and why we have huge inflation already. And inflation is currency destruction. It's not price increases, although there are price increases. Tesco just announced across the board 11% increases on most staples, key staples. So there's huge inflation. It's not being captured by your statistics partner, bureau, because they bent. Simple as that. And where else is the rest of the inflation? We are mining non-economic oil. Simple as that. Go look at my other YouTubes that I did on fracking, etc. Oil, there's no $50 oil anymore. There's no $60 oil. There's plenty of $250 oil. So the notion of peak oil is wrong. The notion of cheap oil is the one that we've run out of. And how do they do that? They have banks fund fracking to provide a surplus. That means the other guys have to pump a certain amount to make the same amount of money. So they keep the rest of OPEC having to pump by not letting them make too much money, which would allow them to ration. So things are priced at the margin. Extreme demand, extreme supply. Go watch that video. I don't want to get into it. So here's where I'm at on all of that. So the crypto game, trade. Trade it. Make sure you maintain assets outside of that system. from hacks down. I think they're currently talking it down. I think we will have a bull market that will reassert in crypto once they've allowed it to ease down a little bit. They're already worried about gold and silver, and it's got a slap down on Friday, both gold and silver. I'm a buy on the dips on gold and silver, and hold your own metals. Hold your own metals, guys. Do not put them. By the way, documents have shown that government-based and even private-based, and the words escape me, safe holdings. It's not the word safe holdings for your precious metals and where you have your jaw and all of that. They can be totally absolved of any guilt if they are robbed out and emptied. They can be totally absolved if they're robbed out and emptied. So be aware of that. And yes, you can say, but this insurance, kind of AIG. If the whole place gets stolen out, what's your insurance going to be worth? The best thing is you control your metals yourself. Truly. You truly need to do that. And that's, that. By the way, when the ANC needed money, they actually had politically based robberies, robbing armed vehicles. It was largely accepted, like one of the forces that were happening in the run-up to elections in South Africa. So governments can have gangs and ex-military people that find money for political means. Stalin, when they robbed the bank in Tbilisi, were actually raising money to overthrow Russia. It wasn't Russians in Russia, it was Georgians mainly in Russia, and largely Ashkenazi. So here's some of the things you need to understand about how the system works. Those are my thoughts. It's a long YouTube. I've had a lot of things building up for a while. Maybe some of you I lost along the way. That's fine. I hope you enjoy it. We will be trading and we will be investing. And make sure when the music stops that you're not vulnerable to that debt jubilee. That's my concern with some of the trades that are being put forward. They may work for a while until they stop. Why not go to the safety of the reset, post-reset environment for something that will always have value? So don't get too believed into the cryptos. Have some, trade it, invest in some. Recognize that the mood will change and stay alert and build in other areas as well, like your precious metals. Okay, bye guys. I hope you enjoyed the clip.